be only one podcast, and may it be the Prince of the Universe. Hi, folks. I'm Matt.
And I'm Wes.
Hey, Wes.
Hi, Matt.
How's it going?
It's going well. How's it going with you?
That's going excellent. You know, last time you were here, you suggested a book for me.
Yes, I did.
The
book of the week.
It was Book of the Week. It was like the Reading Rainbow Book of the Week.
Right.
Thank you, LeVar Burton.
Did the Bookmobile bring this to you?
No, but I did take a look, and it was in a book, A Reading Rainbow.
Oh, okay. Well, good.
I feel like I can do anything now. That butterfly in the sky.
Even this podcast.
Is Chris Jericho, Lion's Tale. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, I wanted to talk about a few of the books that I've read, you've read, that we both read, maybe, I'm saying. We both read Mick Foley's books.
Yes.
I've only read 2 of his. I'm sure he's made more since then.
Yeah, he's made a whole bunch.
Yeah, but Have a Nice Day. And then, what was the second one?
Foley is Good.
Oh, Foley is Good. Yes.
Yeah.
Those were the 2 that I read. Have a Nice Day is possibly the best thing I've ever read. From
very authentic.
It is. I mean, he wrote it all, and it is it has a monster of a book too. Yeah. It's very in depth. It tells great stories. It's got good humor, and he wrote it all on his own.
Right.
A lot of people I read the Rock's book back in the day. He had someone else write it for him. It's very generic. I was underwhelmed after reading Mick Foley's book. I was on a tear to read some more.
Right.
I read Triple H's book. It reads like a workout manual. Of course, that's what his interest is in.
Sure.
So he's telling you about what he did to bulk up, diet, legs. Sure. Have you read this?
I read some of Hunter's book, but
it's not a good.
It's all those bodybuilding.
It's a bodybuilding. It's his autobiography tied around what he really wanted to make, a bodybuilding book. That's obviously what he wanted to make, which, I mean, I get it. It. That's your passion. So my name will sell on a few crates. Tim from Open Airlock Policy told me about the Hardy Boys book, and I told him I had not read it, but I was mistaken because when I got that one from the library, I had read it. I was like, wait a minute, I remember all this. Yeah. Talks a lot about them growing up. I like the pictures. I like their, I enjoyed that story. Of course, I love the Hardy Boys. Didn't have humor in it, or as much, if I remember. Did you ever read the Hardy Boys?
Yeah, I read it. I think the funny parts of the book was mostly just their ground level way of getting into the business and how they started their own federations and
how they had their own tag team as kids and the wrestling shows they put on and
how they promoted on their own as kids was pretty. It's funny because of how difficult it was and the funny stories about it. And I thought that part of it was really good. And then the fact that was the first place that I ever heard about a bump card where they talk about the way they work and their bump card.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting to see how those guys are still around and you can see the wear and tear that their bodies have went
now. Yeah. Have they I'm sure they've written other books. They've had other books.
I don't know if they've written anything else.
Oh, they haven't. Okay, so it's just that one. I don't know if The Rock has done anything since his first one, but I don't really care to read it.
He's too big of a star to really be too open and honest about anything.
And Triple H never did anything either. So it's Mick Foley. Chris Jericho has a ton of books. I didn't realize that either.
He's got quite a few.
Yeah, he's got quite a few, and so does Mick Foley. But I'd only read the first 2 Mick Foleys. And other than that, I was looking online to see, okay, what are the books that I read? And I think that was it.
Well, Flair did a book and Mark Madden.
What was that? What was that called? That's right. Is it the only Flair book out there?
It's the only one.
Okay, gotcha.
Done. And it was. I mean, Flair's career is.
His career stretches decades.
It's definitely different, but yeah, I mean, you can't really put his into that. But Bret Hart wrote his own book, and it's really good. Big, thick, long book. It's like a phone book.
Okay, I bet that one's pretty good.
I mean, it's like a Bret Hart match. It's it has its spots, but it's solid, just like how he was. It was
nice.
It's very good.
What was the cutoff date for that book? How far did it move along?
He went through everything.
Oh, from when he officially retired.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's everything about Owen, him having the stroke, everything.
Really?
Everything in there. Yeah.
What's it called?
I can't.
That's right. That's right. I may read that one next. That one intrigues me.
And there's a there's a good book that's there. These books were made like in the early 2000s by ECW Press. There's one called The Death of WCW. It's kind of an in-depth look at their viewpoint of the downfall of WCW, and it's pretty enlightening.
Who wrote that one?
It was R.D. Reynolds, and I want to say Brian Alvarez, who works with Meltzer's stuff.
Okay, all right.
I think
no, so they know their stuff and everything.
Yeah, and it's just it's funny because it really. And it's definitely their point of view. I mean, there's other point of views on why businesses crash, but they definitely look at it from a certain point of view and really make it ridiculous that they let things get to the point that they did.
Yeah.
But that's a good read.
Okay.
Really
all
good.
right. Death of WCW?
The Death of WCW.
All right. What else?
Ooh.
This is good. Now, here's the funny thing. Without you knowing we were going to talk about all of this, you knew we were going to talk about Chris Jericho, but you had told me you had brought out all your books to bring over.
In the ring right now,
yeah,
so
I am calling the play. But you were thinking about bringing all your books here anyway tonight.
Yeah, just to show you what
you had. Yeah.
DiBiase's wrote, I think, 2 books, $1 Million Man.
Those good?
Ted's a preacher, so he can.
Oh, okay. He preaches to you in it?
Well, a little bit.
Okay. I mean, again, just like Triple H loves his working out.
Yeah. Bill Watts wrote a book, which is really good, who was the promoter here in Louisiana when I was a kid, and it's really good.
All right.
I mean, there's, but by far the Foley and Jericho book to me are the 1-2s.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Because I was reading it, and I like Mick Foley's quote on the back. He said, "I enjoyed it so much. For a minute, I had to check and make sure if it wasn't better than my book."
Right.
And it's funny because at times I felt like this could beat Have a Nice Day, but overall, Have a Nice Day is just such an immersive. It talks about the business. It talks about the struggles. It talks about the road. And so does Jericho's.
Yeah, Jericho's is really good.
And Jericho's has tons of humor in it. But Mick Foley can spin a tale. And he does it great. And he's worked with several people, several promotions. He's done it all. Really. Sure. And so there's, in a way, it just felt more accomplished and rounded out. Plus, I really want to say that book was like 800 pages or 600 pages.
Well, I think that
was a behemoth of a book.
Part of it, too, was the Jericho book ends with him walking out.
It's a part, which I love. I'll talk. We'll go ahead and talk about it. So Lion's Tale, of course, like every book, begins with his humble beginnings.
Sure.
About him being a wrestler, about him being a kid. Wrestling was a thing for him and his dad to do.
Right.
He talks about how he begged his mom to go buy tickets to a magic show, and begged her, and bugged her, and finally she said, "Okay, we'll go see the magic show." Well, then the magic show happened to be the same night that he and his dad would go watch the local wrestling. Well, then he instantly regretted that. Hated the magician show, but had to go because he begged his mom so much.
Sure.
And was on the phone with his dad afterwards. Said, "Dad, what happened?" And so his dad goes, "Oh, so-and-so came in the ring and they did this." And he's like, "Oh, no." And he felt like, I missed out. Never again. Wrestling was his true love. And the things he talks about as being a kid, and the same thing as the Hardy Boys, was the same thing. They had a card, a pay-per-view. As kids, they had their matches, their storylines.
Well, his talent, I think at his talent show, him and his buddy did something.
Yeah. But I mean, they would sit there and plan out entire seasons with the card, with the working card for what's going to happen this night and what's going to happen at the pay-per-view later on. And don't miss it, folks. And they had their own little, they pretend to be all these different wrestlers. Sure. And everything, taking the bumps and whatnot and playing the game. And I was thinking, I could see, if you have the right friends, you can make that happen.
Yeah, you definitely take the right friends.
Yeah, you have to have the right friends. But, to have people dressing up as their colorful, he'd come in as I can't remember what the names were, but Cowboy something, and this other guy who was an assassin or whatever in real life or whatever.
I think he even drew a picture of like Owen Hart.
Him and Owen Hart as tag team champions, and as a very young, unaccomplished wrestler. He met Owen Hart, felt like he had to ask him a million questions, but Owen Hart never felt bugged, was happy to meet him, seemed like a nice guy. Crushed Jericho when he died. When he couldn't believe it. That was a big issue. He did address in the preface about how he's going to deal with the Chris Benoit situation, and he struggled over whether he should keep these memories in about Chris. Good memories, happy memories, pleasant.
That's quite a dilemma to be in. Anybody that's has followed wrestling for as long as we have, especially for those guys that were so close, to figure all that out.
Well, that's what the preface said. He says, I'm going to address Chris Benoit.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, Joe, what he did was wrong at the end. It was wrong. Everyone knows that. He said, but the man he was not that, and the marriage he had and everything was not that, and that's what I'm going to talk about is that Chris Benoit.
Right.
And so I thought he handled it perfectly, because that is a sticky.
It's very much a disclaimer.
It's how do you talk good about someone who did something so heinous at the end of his life?
Correct.
And so that was but he had to do it because Chris Benoit meant a ton to him.
Sure, yeah.
And I did not know this, by the way. I didn't know he and Chris Benoit had that closer. I knew they knew each other,
right? But
I didn't know they had that closer relationship. So that was really interesting. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I like how he went to the fake heart school.
Yeah.
Let me just take your money. I'll put you in a headlock for 10 minutes and leave.
Yeah, who's followed wrestling? A lot of wrestling schools. That's kind of how it is. It's a lot of advertising.
One big name for one guest appearance,
it's not
and then
quite what you expected.
Yeah, and I like whatever he called the girl kumquat face, which was hilarious. I did not know that Lance Storm and him were the earliest of buddies, because Lance Storm was also in that
they were the
school, and they were the only ones with talent,
right?
Supposedly, that came out of that. And it's kind of funny because Lance Storm, even though Jericho praises Lance Storm the entire novel and says he's jealous because his form was always better, his execution was always better, he always made someone, whenever Lance Storm walked into the ring against a lesser opponent, Lance always made that guy look the best. Right. And he said he just, he loved him, but he hated that he was always better than Chris. And I love it when he said, I think her name was Debbie, Kumquat Face, when they did their main match as their graduation match.
Right.
Chris got the win. Lance decided to give Chris the win, and Debbie goes, "Wow, I can't believe you won, Chris. I always thought Lance was better." It's like, you've been in the school the whole time and you still don't know it's fake. That was pretty funny. I
guess that adds merit to probably how much better they were than everybody else. Everyone looked at them. They presented themselves as realistic athletes as opposed to playing wrestling.
One guy was a farm. He worked on a farm.
Correct.
Always liked wrestling. He wanted to get into school. One guy sold encyclopedias, back in the short, squatty guy, but he wants to be a wrestler, so he went to wrestling school.
Sure.
And all these people were just wannabes, and no one had the physique or and Chris Jericho says it, except for Lance.
Right.
And so those two instantly clicked, and they became, wrestling partners in the ring.
Right.
And while everyone was trying to figure out a leg drop, they were all, doing the suplexes, doing learning everything.
Right.
Quick studies. He talks about how he wanted to be.
He talked about running a mile backwards. Did you read that?
Yes, that was in the part of the training, running a mile backwards.
And he said, that may not seem like much to you, but try it.
Yeah.
And after I read that book,
Did you really? Did you try?
Yeah, it's on a track. It's pretty difficult.
I bet.
Pretty difficult. Walking backwards is hard enough, but you're trying to run. So that level of dedication, anybody that's interested in that side of it, that's why their cardio is so impressive, to do that kind of stuff also, and to be getting up and get down. But that's what it takes, is doing stuff like that.
And I also love about the failed ideas. Mick Foley put this in his book about some ideas that Vince McMahon and other promoters came up for him. He's like, no, let's not call me that. Right. That looks ridiculous. And his was Chris. No. Who I can't remember. Something Benoit. Chris Benoit's younger brothers, who they wanted him to be.
Right.
And he shot down that idea instantly, because people would know that's not his brother, and that's just a hook.
It's kind of like him going to a Hart wrestling camp that was loosely affiliated with any of the Harts.
It's the fake Dukes. It's the fake, whatever.
Right.
who come in for ones. There's posers. He talks about that for one of the Japanese wrestling companies he went for, because they had a fake Big Boss Man, a fake, whatever the WWF had. They had their fake
Correct.
version of it. And then that was the other thing. Then it talks about him, putting in his time, hitting the road, Mexico, his trips out to Mexico, the wrestling there, the kind of thuggish environment he was in, but that he was still enjoying it. I can't remember the name. I should have written this name down. The name of the wrestler who died in Mexico right before Chris decided to leave too, because it just wasn't the same. Inflation had hit the peso was one reason, but then it was. I can't. Do you remember that wrestler's name? But he really. He even showed a letter. I can't remember. I should have written it down.
Was it
but
Eddie Guerrero's tag partner?
Maybe, because that's when he had met Eddie Guerrero too.
Yeah, I'm going.
Okay, but you know who he said they took a rickshaw, kind of drunk, and he talks about laughing about two drunk men taking a rickshaw together, holding, almost like we're going to hold hands. But at the end, kind of drunk, he told Chris he loved him, and take care, brother. I'm going to go see my daughter and everything. But then he died in his hotel room.
Right.
And that really, that was a big loss for him. You could tell in the book, which I thought was interesting too.
I think the fact of when wrestlers die, it's kind of like when athletes die and they're on a team. But wrestlers is such a different, insulated way where they're really in close quarters, especially 30 years ago. You were always in cars, 4 guys in a car, 3 guys in a car, something like that. So when you lose like that part of you, it's kind of like when you lose a family member.
Oh yeah,
to a certain degree, because you're just with these people so much, and you're like grinding away at the time with those people, and they're the kind of people that kind of keep you sane, which kind of probably lends itself to what happened to Benoit and how hard it is to wrap his head around that, because that's somebody that was filled such a big role of his life. To do something so awful and then take his own life, how do you comprehend this is somebody that was a big part of your life? So
yeah, that's true. It talks about him going to Japan, which I kind of already mentioned earlier, and how the wrestling was like over there. He got to be called Lionheart or whatever he always wanted.
Yeah, he got to be Super Liger against
Super
Liger, and he came back after shitting the bed, and the promoter basically said, "We no call you Super Liger."
Super. Yeah, the Jericho curse.
Yeah,
his first match anywhere he goes is always crap. That was kind of funny. Just all the different techniques. He talks about the stuff he picked up, stuff he learned from every venue he went to. Talking to Chris Benoit before going to Japan, Chris at first was like, "Who are you again?" "Oh yeah, we wrestled once." "What? Are you asking for a favor?" And he was like, "No, I'm just telling you. Thinking about going to Japan. I got an offer." He's like, "Oh yeah, you should totally go." And that kind of built up. That started their friendship.
Right.
At first, because he'd wrestled with him with Eddie and stuff a while back.
Another big part of this book we totally glossed over was Jericho's mother.
Oh, yeah. What a sad story. She watched him go off to camp, and then I love how he wrote it. I saw her walk back into the house. What I did in the rearview mirror. What I didn't know is that that was the last time I'd ever see her walk again.
Right.
And that's how it ends. That's how the chapter ends. It's like, whoa, what happened?
Yeah.
And then they tell the story about he was living with that family out in the podunk, country, and his dad tracked him down on the phone back in the 90s when you didn't have internet, and he knew it was serious.
Late 80s, actually.
Yeah. Probably so. No. It was yeah. No, you're right. Could have been late 80s. Never mind. It could have been late.
The story is his mother was paralyzed.
Yeah.
After an altercation with the guy she was seeing.
Yeah, crazy.
And Jericho talks about how he's handling all this and what he wants to do to this guy, and basically the cop.
Yeah, I was going to say the cop stops says, "I know what you want to do. You need to think about this."
What's interesting about that, and I don't know it's interesting, but that's maybe the wrong term, but what the feelings he's feeling then to channel that 20 years later, what happened with Benoit and what was going on through his mind, and what pushed him to that point of what happened with Nancy. It's very, you can call on that.
There's another one, and he prefaces the picture too. He has a picture of Chris Jericho, Benoit, and his wife Nancy.
Right.
And says, I really struggle on whether I should put this in the book as well. He said, but I just wanted to put it in to show you everyone they did love each other.
Right.
At one point, it was a happy marriage. At one point, it was something nice. So, and the thing is, I thought it was all well done because it is a hard subject.
I think that's what made his book so well is he tackled a lot of subjects that were a little more edgy than just talking about. So I wrestled in Atlanta at a big show. It's really digging into the aspect of people's lives that you're not going to hear often.
Right. No, you're not. I should also mention that after he moves back, I think this is around it. He hooks up with Jim Cornette's Smoky Mountain. That's probably the highlight. Well, no, I love the WCW era, but the book just builds as it gets on. It gets better.
You that chapter where it's hot dogs and orange juice.
That's great. It's great. It's great. That's where the Bruiser Bedlam story is from Dark Side of the Ring. That's where the Jim Cornette Dairy Queen. He filmed it? Is that what he said?
Yes.
That is hilarious because it's Chris Jericho filming that. Tells another Jim Cornette story that was hilarious too. I could not stop laughing. I could not stop. I mean, seriously, I had to put the book down. I was laughing so hard. It's like Mick Foley's book. I just had to stop because I just couldn't stop laughing.
They really can tell a story that you can really visualize every bit of it.
That's the word. You can visualize everything Chris is saying when he talks about the fans. That is funny. That those
dancing around,
toothless, big, and then when he's at the signing and the girl gives him the video of all his matches, it's basically her little brother farting and the mom going, "Don't you fart!" And then he's running like a crab. And then she's trying to do like some dances or whatever, and it's like he calls it the hillbilly.
It's
I can't remember what he called it, but it was hilarious. The grandma who says, "I love Chris. I love Chris Jericho. We love him.
Mm-hmm.
If I had two children, I'd name one Chris and the other Jericho."
It's a good book.
That is some pretty slick stuff. And he talks about how Jim Cornette kind of let the business die, after getting his job with, I guess he was with the WWF back then.
Well, he was, and it was.
Well, and Chris's
financially, he was kind of
strapped.
Over.
Okay, so he kind of left.
Rick Rubin, the music, big music mogul, is who was like Cornette's backer for a lot of that.
Oh, okay.
And it just got to a point where
couldn't afford it anymore. Yeah. Nice to have, but it sounded like it was a big. I mean, he said they were dedicated. They were there. The fans. You could say one thing about them: they were dedicated. They were there.
Yeah.
The furniture store is hilarious. When he and Lance Storm go there to sign autographs, there's no one there, and he asks if he can leave, and the guy's like, "No, I paid for 4 hours." They had to just sit there for 4 hours in a furniture store, and it was, "Are you a wrestler?" And then the kid goes, "You must not be popular." I mean, you love hearing about those lows. That Chris Jericho, sitting in
the humility of trying to be a star.
After he'd wrestled in Japan and Mexico, he'd been a big star in those.
Right.
He comes to Smoky. He's a big star in Smoky Mountain, but still, he ain't made it yet.
Still signing autographs at a furniture store.
Exactly, and I like his. Then you talk about the WCW days. He doubles or triples his price in front of Eric Bischoff, and Eric Bischoff agrees, and he's like, "Dang it, didn't go high enough." I love, and this is multiple people. I'm sure Death of WCW probably talks about this. He said Bishop just was like, "I don't care. It's Ted's money. I can spend it however I want." What do you think about that version of?
I think some of that's a little overblown.
Okay, so Chris is. I mean, it is from his viewpoint, but he thought
Eric spent the money that he could spend. I don't think. I mean, he had a budget.
Yeah, but I think what Chris was saying, that he didn't care who he signed for what, as long as he got him. And Chris, if you remember this book, he made it sound like Eric had a blank check.
Right.
And so money didn't matter. Sign them. Don't use them very much. Sign this. Waste talent,
I mean,
which they did.
There's merit to that, but I don't think that it's to quite that point. I mean,
okay.
Is if you've got 100 people, you can't use all of them.
Chris also said there was Eric, Hulk, of course, the big Hulk and his friends.
Right.
Eric, and someone else. I can't remember someone else, and they all three kind of ran the storyline for WCW, which is why everything
Probably
was kind
Kevin
of
Sullivan.
Kevin Sullivan, yeah. And so everyone gave him angles.
Who Benoit's ex was married to.
Oh, the guy that wrote himself out of the story. He wrote the story that got rid of his wife, his real life wife.
Yeah.
Then, okay, but he said those three people were kind of, it's like one hand didn't know what the other hand was doing, and they had all these conflicting storylines. And
Right.
he was told one day to pick on Bill Goldberg, but then Goldberg got mad. And he's like, "Look, I'm doing what Kevin Sullivan said," but then that kind of turned into a bit.
Yeah, I think that was maybe Terry Taylor told him that was okay. But to any extent, yeah, it highlighted how. It highlights more to me on how Hogan ruled so much of it, and he dictated. If he wanted to dictate to anything else, he had the ability.
For whatever reason, Chris Benoit went easy on Hulk. Jericho did. Oh, sure. Yeah, Jericho did. Chris Jericho did. He somewhat liked Scott Hall. It was kind of weird. Like he at first got along with Scott Hall. Then he was.
Yeah, he has a good story when they first show up. The first three guys.
He told that the first three guys showing. I guess showing up on time doesn't mean anything here.
Right.
And he said that was the last time he basically talked to those guys on the same level. After that, they were above everyone.
Sure.
But Scott Hall came and told him something one time, which was very nice.
Yeah, they had like a blow up in the locker room.
Oh, yeah, it's altercation. And Scott Hall came up to him. He said Hulk Hogan came up to him when he put his foot down about him and Bill Goldberg not losing to Bill on a Monday night, but going to it on pay-per-view.
Right.
And Hulk, said, "Hey, good job standing up for yourself there." But talked about the sourness that was Bill Goldberg, and I don't think he has much respect. But I do remember those days in WCW where he was taunting Goldberg, and
Goldberg locked into it.
You thought
later in WWF.
Yeah, but you thought it was going to be a big match in WCW. They were working for, and they didn't work into it. And here's the thing where I think Chris Jericho got a little bit wrong. He downplayed how cruiserweight to him meant nothing in WCW. Maybe, but the cruiserweights was the only thing we loved watching back in the Monday Night Wars. I mean, that was the thing you didn't want to. For me,
think that he downplays that because that's what the business is. That's what it's turned into. Everybody, don't see bigger guys anymore.
True, but I disagree that WCW downplayed their cruiserweights. Their cruiserweight matches were.
Well, they may have been fantastic, but they weren't. They weren't closing the show.
Okay. Well, no, that's true. They weren't. But I didn't.
Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero were not going to close the pay-per-view.
I know, but when you have the heavyweight title on the match, that's what you put on main.
Sure, but I mean, I think that's where he was saying like you couldn't elevate
maybe
cruiserweight to that position.
Well, no, that's true too, but it doesn't mean that cruiserweights were just looked down upon. I don't see any. Well, I mean, in the locker room with the big guys. Yeah, the small guys trying to.
But partially because of the pay scale too.
Yeah.
If you've got guys $750,000
who are just showing up, not wrestling every night. Yeah. No, there's that. He has some legitimate gripes.
But that's how successful people are. When you're younger, you're climbing the ladder. It's not somebody's job that's been there on top for 20 years to just give up their spot. You got to take it from them.
Absolutely. I did enjoy this portion because this was the portion when I was watching TV. So the Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla, all those things. I loved, and Jericho's hair would be all floppy up in a ponytail. He was all acting ridiculous and everything. And you actually he actually became his own character that you loved. Loved to hate him or you just loved him.
Yeah, because he realized he could do it what he could get away with, and he
went for
every
it
time.
Yeah, pushed every time. Now, I do like him secretly meeting Vince McMahon, the maid making brownies.
Right.
Him having one brownie, they were even the brownies were good.
Well, I think what's funny about that story is you can tell how Vince is already playing this psychological warfare.
Oh yeah.
Vince is just. I don't know if Vince McMahon invented gaslighting, but if you read that book.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's all he is he's playing these emotional, psychological games with all those guys.
Well, Chris was drinking the Kool-Aid for that.
Sure.
Because he was saying it was all structured, orderly, business suits. Then he thinks about Eric Bischoff and his loafers and his sweatpants and a T-shirt. He kind of paints this ugly picture between the two.
Well, and then that was, normally you're going to talk about your ex, not quite as in glowing terms
Yeah,
as
no,
the person you're with.
I
So,
agree with that.
I think a
I
lot
agree with
of it
that.
is that.
But I do agree. It ends with him, walking up the countdown clock, which I remember watching too.
Sure.
And it's 3, 2. In between every number, it talks about just one sentence about all my time in Mexico, all my time in
Right.
Japan, all my time in Smoky Mountain. This, that, one, showtime. It's a great ending, a great way to end the book. But also, yeah, because now you're about to be introduced to the big show, which the WWF was, or WWE now, and he's recounting. I bet that was going through his head. I don't think that was just written just because it sounded poetic.
No, I agree.
I bet he's thinking everything I've ever done is leading to this
Yeah,
moment.
like I think that book is very authentic.
It felt that way, and like I said, second only to Have a Nice Day. But it was a solid book. Now, I'm assuming you've read part 2. I guess part 2 goes through.
Yeah, I read his second book. I haven't read anything after.
Do you know what that one's called or anything?
I can't recall.
Okay. I mean, easily looked up and everything, but did you read it? Have you read that? That one's good too?
Yeah, it was good.
Okay.
That's where he talks about the Benoit stuff in depth.
Oh, okay. Well, then I got to read that one then. I got to read that one. But
and he talks about how they, he started realizing when he had stepped away from WWF and how he was just not as close to those guys because he had to get away. He talked about the wrestling bubble. He needed to get out of that. That's when he wanted to pursue, music more and do Dancing with the Stars. And, that's what's made Jericho kind of be relevant to me this whole time is the fact that he did leave and he constantly came back changing things up.
Right.
You don't have to like all of it, but it wasn't, blonde hair and a Fu Manchu every time. I mean, he changed everything
he did.
all the time. And that's not a knock against Hogan. I'm just saying Hogan stayed relevant by doing that, and then he changed one time, and it worked. But Jericho has routinely changed.
Evolved, yes.
Yeah, evolved.
His characters has evolved. Yeah.
That's the word I'm looking for.
No, you're correct on that. So if anyone's wanting to know, if you're interested in it.
If you're wanting to read a 15-year-old wrestling book, that's a good one.
Honestly, it's a solid. Besides Have a Nice Day, and plus Have a Nice Day is a huge book. So if someone may not, I'll be honest, it didn't feel like 600 pages or however long it is. But Chris Jericho's book, solid read all the way through. Not a boring moment. Not a boring. You won't be bored. It keeps, even if you're, like I said, I don't watch wrestling now. I was still enticed. Even before, I wasn't sitting there going, come on, get to WCW. I was never saying that.
Right.
Because
everything he talked about was.
Yeah. It was interesting. It was
layered to the
engaging.
story.
Yeah,
Right.
every chapter is engaging. So check it out. Thanks for the recommendation.
No problem. That's what the bookmobile's for.
That's right. That's right. All right, folks. We'll see you next time on Princes of the Universe.